Welcome to CAN, Caribbean Affiliate News. My name is Siobhan Gubin. This segment of the news is sponsored by Total Caribbean Network. In international news, U.S. military forces stand ready to strike Syria at once if President Barack Obama gives the order. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said Tuesday as the United States prepared to declare formally that chemical weapons had been used in the Syrian civil war. U.S. officials said growing intelligence pointed strongly toward Bashar Assad's government as a culprit, a claim Assad called preposterous. There were cautions from the White House that the goals of any military action would be measured, not intended to drive Assad from power. The U.S., along with allies in Europe, appeared to be laying the groundwork for the most aggressive response since Syria's civil war began more than 2 years ago. The White House said that Obama had not settled on what action to take in response to the large-scale use of deadly gases, a move Obama said last year would cross a red line. Officials had planned to release an intelligence report Tuesday, more formally linking Assad to the attack, but the release appeared to be pushed back until later in the week. Still, the White House dismissed as fanciful the notion that anyone other than Assad could be blamed. A U.S. official said some of the evidence includes signals intelligence, information gathered from intercepted communications. The U.S. assessment is also based on the number of reported victims, the symptoms of those injured or killed, and witness accounts. The officials insisted on anonymity because they were not authorized to publicly discuss the internal deliberations. It's unlikely international military action would begin before Thursday. That's when British Prime Minister David Cameron will convene an emergency meeting of Parliament where lawmakers are expected to vote on a motion clearing the way for a British response to the chemical weapons attack. International support was growing. In Paris, President François Hollande said Tuesday that France is ready to push those who took the heinous decision to gas innocents. And the Arab League, the 22-member body dominated by Saudi Arabia and Qatar, also called for justice, laying blame for the attack on the Syrian government. Obama discussed the situation in Syria on Tuesday with Prime Minister Stephen Harper of Canada, a NATO ally. The president has also spoken with Cameron, Hollande, and Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd in recent days, and Vice President Joe Biden spoke Tuesday with Britain's Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg. Officials said the international community was considering action that would punish Assad for deploying deadly gases, not sweeping steps aimed at ousting the Syrian leader or strengthening rebel forces. The focus of the internal debate underscores the scant international appetite for a large-scale deployment of forces in Syria and the limited number of other options. The most likely military response would involve sea-launched cruise missile attacks on Syrian military targets. The White House is also studying legal justifications for taking such steps without approval from the United Nations, where Russia is certain to block action at the Security Council. Italy, meanwhile, is insisting that any strike should be authorized by the Security Council. Hagel told BBC television on Tuesday that the Defense Department has moved assets in place to be able to fulfill and comply with whatever option the president wishes to take. The Navy has 4 destroyers in eastern Mediterranean Sea within range of targets inside Syria. The U.S. also has warplanes in the region. Hagel said, and I quote, "To me it's clearer and clearer that the Syrian government was responsible, but that the Obama administration was waiting for intelligence agencies to make that determination." Hagel was interviewed during a visit to the Southeast Asian nation of Brunei. While there, Hagel spoke by phone about Syria with his counterparts from Britain and France. Hagel's press secretary, George Little, said Hagel conveyed that the United States is committed to working with the international community to respond to the outrageous chemical attacks. On Monday, Secretary of State John Kerry issued a blistering rebuke of the Assad government's actions. Assad, who has denied using chemical weapons, was defiant. In an interview published Tuesday on the website of the state-run Syrian Arab news agency, Assad accused the U.S. and other countries of disdain and blatant disrespect of their own public opinion. There isn't a body in the world, let alone a superpower, that makes an accusation and then goes about collecting evidence to prove its point. The Syrian leader warned that if the U.S. attacks Syria, it will face what it has been confronted with in every war since Vietnam, and that is failure. The Army psychiatrist who killed 13 people at Fort Hood decided not to call witnesses or testify Tuesday during his trial's penalty phase, which is his last chance to plead for his life before the jury begins deliberating whether to sentence him to death. Major Nidal Hassan, who is acting as his own attorney, told the judge he was resting his case without submitting evidence, calling witnesses or testifying in his own defense. The judge then dismissed the jury until closing arguments. The same military jury convicted him last week for the November 2009 shooting rampage, which also wounded more than 30 people at the Texas military base. With the jurors gone, the judge asked Hassan more than 2 dozen questions in rapid fire, affirming that he knew what he was doing. His answers were succinct and just as rapid. "It is my personal decision," he said. "It is free and voluntary." His decision came shortly after emotional testimony from more than a dozen widows, mothers, fathers, children, and other relatives of those killed in the attack. Prosecutors hope the testimony helped convince jurors to hand down a rare military death sentence. Hassan is acting as his own attorney but has put up nearly no defense since the trial began 3 weeks ago. He also called no witnesses and didn't testify in his own defense before he was convicted, and he questioned only 3 of prosecutors' nearly 90 witnesses. Although he gave a brief opening statement during which he acknowledged that the evidence would show he was the shooter, he gave no closing argument. But through media leaks and statements to the judge, the American-born Muslim appeared to justify the attack as a way to protect Islamic leaders from U.S. forces in Afghanistan and Iraq. Hassan released a report to the media during the trial that showed he told military mental health workers after the attack that he believed he could still be a martyr if convicted and executed by the government. Prosecutors want Hassan to join just 5 other U.S. service members currently on military death row. The jury of 13 military officers must be unanimous for such a death sentence, and prosecutors must prove an aggravating factor and present evidence to show the severity of Hassan's crimes. No American soldier has been executed since 1961. Many military death row inmates have had their sentences overturned on appeal, which are automatic when jurors vote for the death penalty. The president also must eventually approve a military death sentence. The New York Police Department has secretly labeled entire mosques as terrorism organizations, a designation that allows police to use informants to record sermons and spy on imams, often without specific evidence of criminal wrongdoing. Designating an entire mosque as a terrorism enterprise means that anyone who attends prayer services there is a potential subject of an investigation and fair game for surveillance. Since the 9/11 attacks, the NYPD has opened at least a dozen terrorism enterprise investigations into mosques, according to interviews and confidential police documents. The TEI, as it is known, is a police tool intended to help investigate terrorist cells and the like. Many TEI stretched for years, allowing surveillance to continue even though the NYPD has never criminally charged a mosque or Islamic organization with operating as a terrorism enterprise. The documents show in detail how, in its hunt for terrorists, the NYPD investigated countless innocent New York Muslims and put information about them in secret police files. As a tactic, opening an enterprise investigation on a mosque is so potentially invasive that while the NYPD conducted at least a dozen, the FBI never did one, according to interviews with federal law enforcement officials. The strategy has allowed the NYPD to send undercover officers into mosques and attempt to plant informants on the boards of mosques, and at least one prominent Arab American group in Brooklyn, whose executive director had worked with the city officials, including Bill de Blasio, a frontrunner for mayor. The revelations about the NYPD's massive spying operations are in documents recently obtained by the Associated Press and part of a new book, Enemies Within, Inside the NYPD's Secret Spying Unit and Bill Laden's Final Plot Against America. The book, by AP reporters Matt Apuzzo and Adam Goldman, is based on hundreds of previously unpublished police files and interviews with current and former NYPD, CIA, and FBI officials. The disclosures come as the NYPD is fighting off lawsuits accusing it of engaging in racial profiling while combating crime. Earlier this month, a judge ruled that the department's use of the stop and frisk tactic was unconstitutional. The American Civil Liberties Union and 2 other groups have sued, saying the Muslim spying programs are unconstitutional and make Muslims afraid to practice their faith without police scrutiny. Both Mayor Mike Bloomberg and Police Commissioner Raymond Kelly have denied those allegations. They say police do not unfairly target people, they only follow leads. An NYPD spokesman declined to comment. You're watching Caribbean Affiliate News. We will be right back.
Mom, let you take your car out. This is awesome.
It's time to grow.
You're crazy.
Little while
Go faster. Stop.
It'll all be alright.
I raised my son to be careful,
Hey, sweetie. Hey, Mom.
but just to be safe,
So don't you worry.
I got a Subaru.
Love. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Coleman Subaru, 1710 North Alden Avenue, Ewing, New Jersey, or ColemanSubaru.com.
Since we announced Sign and Drive with 0 out-of-pocket and low monthly payments, cars been flying out of Bronx Honda at a record pace. Whoa! New Accord with 0 out-of-pocket for $249 a month, or new Civics just $199 per month, or save thousands with 0% financing. You never had to leave the Bronx to get the best price on the Honda. Bronx Honda guarantees the lowest price in the Bronx. Bronx Honda, East Tremont Avenue. Visit BronxHonda.com.